Hi, friends. Welcome back. So, question for you. Should you go to college? That's the subject of today's video. And someone asked me this question in the comments today, and I'm making it for you. So, whenever we talk about these topics, I'll say this right away: follow your passion. So, for some, college may fit in. For others, it may not fit in. But whatever it is that you're going to do in life, be passionate about it because it's your life and you want to find something that makes sense for you. Some jobs, for example, may not necessarily require college. If you can program Flappy Bird and don't need to go to school to learn how to do this and sell it on the App Store, because we have a whole nother world these days, go by all means, go ahead and do that if you're able to do that. If you're able to open a restaurant and make tons of money, doing that, support yourself and your family and open a franchise, by all means, go ahead and do that. There are jobs, however, that do require college, so something like a doctor, nurse, etc. Requires schooling. But again, I want to just reiterate: follow your passion, what makes sense for you, and if you don't have any passion for what you're going to do, you're just doing things for the money, and you'll probably burn out very, very quickly. So do things that you enjoy. For me personally, I've written about this in my book. I talked about this quite a bit. I had to pick berries when I was a kid, and I can just tell you it's not a great job. It doesn't pay very much, and it's physical hard labor, and it's not something that's sustainable. And I knew that from a long time that I needed to go to school if I wanted to do certain kind of jobs that I wanted to do. Pick up my copy of my book, and I encourage you to read it because I go through all kinds of these topics. If you like talking about this stuff, it's called Positive Angle, and it's on Amazon. I mentioned this because also there's an article this week. It says on July 1st, 2024, NEETs. This is a new category of people, and basic idea here is that these are not in education, not in employment, and not in training, right? So these are young people who aren't doing anything, right? Not working, not learning to work, not training to work, not anything like that. And these numbers are actually getting bigger around the world. In the USA right now, youth unemployment is about 9.2%. You might be an old person watching this or a young person watching this, and these are sort of the numbers that are coming out. Now, how many NEETs are there between ages between 15 and 24? One organization, so the International Labor, they estimate maybe about 11.2% of young adults in the USA meet this, right? So it's going to depend on where you are, but some countries, certainly have more than others. You guys can see on the chart there on the right. And the other thing too I want to mention is sort of the views of college have changed throughout the years. Things are different than they were before. Everything's different. It changes in each generation. These are the current views. It's kind of an interesting one. This is at the Pew Research. It says here only 22% of U.S. adults say the cost of college is worth it if, and that's a big if someone has to take out loans, right? So it depends. Like, hey, if you can go for free, why not? And there is situations where you can go for free. And also too, it depends like how much loans that we're talking about, etc. These are other ones say here, 4 in 10 Americans say a college degree is not too or not at all important in order to get a well-paying job. But I'll say this, it really depends what you consider to be well-paying. And, the sky's the limit when it comes to salary. I will say this though, if you just take a look at this, between comparing people who have college degrees and people who don't have college degrees, if you have a college degree, your chances are you're going to make more money. This is on average. It doesn't mean you're a particular situation, but just, on average, that is what it is. However, again, I really emphasize this, guys. It just depends what makes sense for you. For some, going to a trade school makes a lot more sense than, say, going to college. I mentioned this several times in the channel, like a nurse, electrician, auto repair, these kind of things. These are some of the top jobs that you can get in terms of salary, right? Because again, follow your passion. It's not always about the money. So for example, on this chart here, let's say dental hygienist, they get $87,000 a year, which is pretty good. A plumber only gets 61. And I say only, and it depends. This is median. Depends on, your skills and where you are. But maybe you enjoy, working on plumbing, or maybe enjoy electrician, and you just don't really see yourself as being a dental hygienist, right? So you got to do what makes sense for you. And I didn't actually know this one. This was an interesting one. Elevator installer and repair, 102,000. The other thing too, I'll say, regardless of whatever vocation that you decide to go into, always be learning. Literally every day, always be learning something new. Don't stand stagnant in your skills. The other thing I'll say, and this is, doesn't necessarily have to do anything with college, but always be teaching yourself, right? If you go to college, teach yourself. If you don't go to college, teach yourself. Just always be learning, always be making new friends, and read. I know these are unfun things to say these days in the world of YouTube. Everyone wants just to watch videos, but there's something important about reading. It is a much more active way to learn. And moreover, this is something that I was thinking about. Han Solo, if you guys know the original movie Star Wars, I know it's old, and I don't know if kids know this movie now, but I'll just tell you, Han Solo always says, "Don't tell me the odds," and that C-3PO, he's always, spouting off all these numbers of how things can't be done. But don't be Han Solo. know what your chances are. For those of you who are thinking, okay, I'm going to do something else. I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to be a game streamer. If you want to be a game streamer on Twitch, something like that. I just looked up numbers quickly. There are 8.07 million active streams, and how many out of that 8 million say are going to be profitable, are going to be making millions of dollars a year, that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe it's less than 10 people, maybe it's less than 100 people, but there's not that many people that can actually do that. Here's another example. Let's say you want to be a famous rapper, because I know there's lots of people out there that want to do that. So according to musictimes.com. So I think they were looking at, people who are actually are artists / singers, right? Among them, the mega ones are like 0.2%. So very, very few. And it doesn't mean it's impossible, but just very, very few, right? And then it says here 90% are undiscovered. So, maybe only 10% then are quote working, but then out of the, that percentage of people who actually can be a singer or even work in music, right? Very few become a mega star. This is another one. What are your odds of becoming an NFL player? So if you're coming out of high school, right, 2.6% of high school players go into Division I, right? Not that many. And let's say you can make it to Division I, then only 1.6% of those players, right, out of a college make it to the NFL. And then just say you get drafted, only 30% of the drafted players can make it on an NFL roster. And so I think it's important to understand your odds for those of you who want to be a Twitch streamer, want to be a rapper, want to be an NFL player. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but just understand that it's not easy. There's a lot of competition, and you want to be honest with yourself of what your chances are for that. For those of you who want to start a business, because someone in the comment they asked about college, and say, hey, what if I can just start a business? 10 to 20% of startups, right, succeed. Then that means the other 80, 90% don't. This is another number here. It says 18% of first-time entrepreneurs find success in their business. So that means 1 out of 5 maybe. And the other thing too, which is how do you define success? You could say success in a business is you're still in business, but doesn't necessarily mean you're raking in tons of money. And again, don't make everything necessarily about money. If you're able to do a job that makes sense for you, that you enjoy, and it puts food on the table, because you do need to eat, by all means do it. Again, follow your passion, but just want you to understand the odds of these kind of things. And also too, would say the business one, the more businesses that you start, the better chances you have to finally get one that makes sense and that works. Regarding the college thing, if you just want to talk about money, you'll see these kind of charts all the time, but it's always roughly the same. If you can go to an Ivy League school, chances are that's probably going to be pretty good. The other thing is too, you may know this, with Ivy League universities, they're very, very generous with their financial aid. It depends on which one you go to, but if your family makes, let's say, less than 150 or less than 100, it depends on which one. Tuition is free, so they're very, very generous. And if you make under a certain amount, it again depends on each university. We'll say 80 or something like that. Then everything will be paid for. For the average person, because not everyone can go to Ivy League University, going to a good public school, so that would be the best public school in your state, usually is the best decision. But everything's going to depend on your particular situation if you do indeed go to college, because the financial aid packages are over the map. It just depends on what they decide to give you. Also depends on which school we're talking about. The ones that tend to be the worst value for college, just if we're talking about money, is the private ones that are expensive but not necessarily elite academic standards. So you probably heard this stuff before, but it's worth going over in case you haven't. This is a list. You can find this on the Princeton Review. This thing here comes from a Georgetown study. But they talk about, what are the best value in terms of, pay to tuition, et cetera. MIT comes out on top. Basically, it costs a lot of money to go to MIT, yes, but people come out of MIT tend to get very high paying jobs. That would be like in your STEM. But other high paying jobs out there in the world would be like your finance, these kind of things. And again, it depends. If you want to be a doctor, you got to go to college. If and I always use the video game example because that kind of, idea that I can just put stuff on the App Store did not exist when I was a kid. It just wasn't a thing. But this is just a list of private schools that consider to be good value. And you got to mention this stuff because essentially, unfortunately, and this is kind of a tough conversation, but we probably have too many universities in the USA these days. Maybe you could say half of them should close. I know it's a tough conversation just because when you get down to the bottom of the spectrum, the amount of money that they charge you for the value you get, the good return isn't there anymore. And for many of those kind of people, you're probably better off going to trade school. So again, for the average person, though, try to go to your best public school in your state. And I really know. It's inherently unfair though because some states are better than others, and that's unfair. It's the way it is. I grew up in Oregon. I really know. I talk about this stuff a lot of times in the channel. It's a complicated conversation. This is another one I want to show you. This is an interesting chart. So this is just rankings. If you just get a 2-year degree, what are value, and again, just in terms of money. We're not talking about the career path, but just in terms of money. And you can kind of see here, so like for some of these, let's say you go to Camden County College, your monthly earnings would be what, $3,600 a month, right? So it's not great, but your debt is only like $100 a month, right? And you can make $42,000 a year. So you can kind of get the sense of what we're talking about here. But these are the ones that we offer value. So it's every school is going to be different. So in this example, we're talking about the bachelor's level. Let's say you go to UC Berkeley. You may end up making $6,800 a year. So maybe the debt that you have to take to go to Berkeley is $120 a month, but you make $80,000 a year, right? So there's the other examples. You can take a look at Northwestern if you want. Monthly earnings $6,400, but your monthly debt's much higher than say Berkeley, right? That's why Berkeley's higher up there on the value chart. Monthly debt may be $350, then you only make 73 years. So. But it's always going to depend on your major, how well you did in school, your networking. There's a lot of factors in place. And then if you get to the master's level, you want to go somewhere like a Penn, right? Your monthly earnings may be $14,000 a year. Yes, you have debt, $490 a month, but you may be making $165. So comparing say the 2-year, like you guys can see the difference in pay gap. It's real. So that's why you got to talk about this stuff. And again, do what makes sense for you. And I keep saying that because there's no right answer to this stuff, guys. But I will say you got to have skills, though, to be realistic with you. Unfortunately, we live in sort of an era to where we're kind of nice to children in a way, and not nice in a good way, but nice to be like, oh, you can do everything you want and you're going to be successful. But it's not really the case. There are some avenues that have more higher chance of success than others. The other thing I want to mention too, with regarding the college situation, or wherever you go in life, wherever you're going to go is going to determine the kind of network that you have. And make no mistake, network is extremely important. The connections of friends around you, right? The people that you know to ask for advice, the people that you know to say, hey, what kind of jobs, or do you want to start a business together, et cetera. Because one of the things that happens to a lot of people, they say, hey, I got this great business idea, whatever that is might be, what you want to do. But you may not necessarily have the people around you that have the work ethic or even the skill to pull that off, or have the same interests, right? Like if you want to, we'll use the restaurant example again. If you want to start a restaurant, you got to make sure you're around people who like to cook, like to eat, like that kind of stuff. Or say you want to, start your own video game studio, you got to find people who are into video games. Or let's say you want to do more high tech and you want to go into fintech and you want to do, payments app or whatever. You got to find around people who are able to do that. Or say, for example, you want to do an auto repair business, right? You got to find people who are like cars, and also find a city that you can go to where people do drive cars, because not every city does. For example, metropolitan area with public transportation may not necessarily be the right place for you. So regardless of if you go to college or not, just understand that big part of college, though, is networking, people that you meet. And it may be people out of your initial circle. So for me, for example, I grew up in Oregon. I went to school other places, other states, and I met a lot of people I never would have met if I would have stayed in Oregon. Now, part of though the school thing is a bit rigged. That's why it's hard to talk about this stuff, because everybody has different starting places. So for example, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, they founded Microsoft. They met at Lake School. That's an expensive school, I believe in Seattle. Gates grew up in a gated community. Mark Zuckerberg, he did go to Harvard, so did Gates, but they both dropped out. But Zuckerberg actually went to Phillips at Exeter, which is a private school for rich kids. So they were born rich. So when people say, you can drop out of college, you just have to understand that, they dropped out of a very good college, and plus also too, they were born rich. Bezos dropped. Actually, he did graduate. He graduated. He didn't drop out, but I know we're talking about dropouts, but he went to Princeton, and I'm just mentioning this because it's something that people don't talk about enough. Is that you don't necessarily have to become Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. Very few people do, but if you want your friends or you want your kids to hang out with people with, for example, Bezos or whoever your favorite popular CEO is, chances are higher if you're going to go to these kind of places that you're going to meet them there. And start said companies. The other thing you want to think about is what kind of person do you think you're going to marry? It matters. And it's interesting because it's not just school. You can meet people, your future potential spouse. You can meet them at work, right? I just pulled this up. Like, where do people meet their spouses? Through your friends' network, school, social gatherings, or even online. But it all depends, like where are your people? Like where do you think you're going to fit in most, and where you're going to find people that are essentially have the same values as you, etc. So it's going to be different for everyone. The one thing though I will say though is that you really, I know I keep saying this, but you really got to make sure you have job skills, because with AI coming, a lot of jobs are going to be replaced. And in fact, many office jobs will probably be replaced. The same way that, say, the secretary doesn't exist anymore, really. Now we have a computer to do spell checking, and even, I guess, with AI stuff, you can just talk to your computer now, and it could correct your grammar and just write it for you. It doesn't mean necessarily you should rely on that thing exclusively. I'm just using an example of the AI stuff. But you always need to be upgrading your skills, and that's why I mentioned before, always be learning. On top of that, though, too, the other thing, which this would be pro-college. Now, it doesn't mean you can't learn this stuff outside of college, but college forces you to learn more than just one skill. So, for example, I mentioned before, if you just want to, make Flappy Bird, sell in the App Store, right? You can make money doing that, but there's more to life than just work, and there's more to life than just, say, learning to code. I'll just give you a simple example. This is one of my favorite places in the world, in New York City, the Met, Temple of Dendur. If you guys have been here, you know exactly where this is. It's a cool room, and part of education is learning to appreciate these kind of places. And the other thing too, I mentioned as well, is get a passport, right? Another part of education, which people don't talk enough about. Again, for something like this to travel, just be honest, it costs money. It costs money to get a backpack, get a passport, and go travel. Now, when you're young, you can do it for much cheaper than when you get older. It's different. You're young and you have a lot more energy, etc. And I highly, highly, highly recommend traveling as much as you can, whenever you can. It changes your view on everything, the people that you meet, the places that you go. And, this is, again, I know I mentioned my book a lot in this particular video, but it's just the stuff that matters to me, right? The growing your mind, growing your world, growing your network, growing the things that you think about. And for me personally, that was, part of college helped me to be where I am today. But again, everyone's going to be different, because I understand it's a different world today. But I'm also honest with you about this stuff, because I think some people are a little bit too nice to kids and say, oh, you can do anything that you want in this world. You don't need any training or education. And YouTube, unfortunately, is filled with that kind of stuff. And this is sort of why I wanted to show you guys these numbers of these, kids out there, the NEETs, that essentially they're not in education, employment, or training. And they're a growing population, unfortunately. And so I don't want you to be that. So I really want you to be realistic about this stuff. I know a lot of older people watch my channel, so you already made your decision in life. But if you do watch this channel, you probably do appreciate always be learning, and you may also to be in connection, right, or in contact with younger people who are kind of having these conversations with. So again, in everything in life that you do, follow your passion, because that will keep you working hard and keep you working to what you want to do. So hopefully this answered your question. Should you go to college? I know it's a complicated answer. But everything in life is complicated, and that's life. So anyway, I do appreciate your time. Please share your thoughts in the comments on this subject, and I'll catch you on the next video.